Are you able to hear us? Good, good, good. As you all know, it shouldn't be a surprise, it's February, so we should be thinking about some of the things we're going to share in a moment, but be thinking about and processing this every day of your life. This is something you can look forward to during Black History Month, but in your own knowledge, to know about the magnificent contribution of African Americans here in the United States. So here at Trenton Deliverance, we're celebrating Black History Month. We want to do it yearly, and we've been doing it as such. As Mr. Deacon Rubin sets up the brief presentation, I thought we'd just share a couple of facts with you, okay? We also know that in this country, not only African Americans, but also brown people make significant contributions. We just happen to be talking about Black History Month. So there are other people of color in this country who are oftentimes ignored and forgotten about their contributions. We want to acknowledge that it matters and that it's real, and we are part of the engine that has built this country. Having said that, I'm just going to throw out a few folks that you want to bear in mind. We also have a presentation packet that's going to reinforce all of this after the video. So if you missed most of it, we're going to get it through another way, by way of a handout. Okay, having said that, Shirley Jackson. Anybody know the name Shirley Jackson? Oh, I see some heads shaking. This is a good thing. Shirley Jackson was the first African-American woman to earn a doctorate at MIT. And if you know anything about MIT, that's one of the top stellar research institutions in the world. So in Massachusetts, MIT. She's responsible and made contributions to the development of the touch-tone telephone, portable fax, fiber optic cable, and caller ID. In fact, Barack Obama appointed her as the first co-chair of the President's Intelligence Advisory Group. That's pretty profound, right? And that was 1946, she started those magnificent contributions. And then we have Lisa Galter. She played the role in 1995 of developing Shockwave, a groundbreaking technology for web animation. In fact, these GIFs that we're sending, it's because of her invention that we now have these incredible GIFs out there. She also contributed to the launching of Hulu. Anybody got Hulu at home? Well, if you do have Hulu, one of the streaming programs, we can thank Lisa. Lonnie Johnson worked with NASA and the laboratory for developing jet propulsion things. You know, when we talk about NASA, jet propulsion means pooh, is off into the universe. Well, he was responsible for helping to create that, along with the super soaker water guns, right? I can see that now, making over $1 billion for retailers to develop that technology. In addition to that, we've got Patricia Babb, who developed it's called the Laser Phaco Probe, a tool that corrects cataracts. So we can contribute Patricia for helping us to see as we age. In fact, I think I'm going to have an appointment with that woman's invention one of these days soon. And then we've got Mary Eliza Mahoney, and she was one of the women who finished her intensive nursing degree in 1879. So if you got your nursing degree, you can go back that far. There were nurses being certified in the 1800s, which is pretty exciting. Then we've got Chef, I'm almost there. Then we've got, and I know you're not going to remember all this, so we do have it in a handout, but I wanted to have a shared moment with you. Then we've got Chef George Crumb, 1824 to 1914, who unintentionally created the potato chip. Imagine that. Yes, and you know how potato chips are. You start with nobody can eat just one, right? Because with potato chips, the customers were complaining that they were like too thick. So this man, poof, here we go. Now we're all like eating these potato chips, we can't stop. That's Chef George Crumb. There are lots of other facts that I want you to look at for the local Black history in this region, so it's just too much to tell. If we can do this every year, that tells you that we are a substantial part of the fabric of this country, and we will continue to be. With that said, Deacon Rubin.
Thank you, Sister Penny. You may have noticed that most of the people that she talked about were females. And we give honor to the females in the church. They've always been the backbone. If you look around us, there's mostly females in church. And that's particularly in the black church. And so next week we have friends and family. Hopefully we can bring some males in here to worship with us. Hopefully we may be able to get them to join. What I'm going to do now is I have a video that I produced for Black History, and you will be receiving handouts to go along with, because there's a lot of wording in it, and I want you to have this as a personal copy, because there are a lot of different things that you will see in this video that will amaze you. There's a word that I always use. It's called awe-inspiring. It's a combination of awesome and inspiring. And so, without further ado, I'm going to play the video. Thank you. What you see on the screen now is verses about slavery that are in the Star-Spangled Event. When you sing the Star-Spangled Event, you really sing the first verse. But there are things about slavery. This is another verse. This is the verse. One of my favorite quotes is, you tell the story with the golden narrative. There are false narratives and a number of textbooks that are colonizing our young men and women. And as you can see, these are quotes from presidents. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, where they talk about how blacks were inferior to white. These are actual quotes. This is nothing made up. This is how they felt about it. Yeah, Lincoln was credited for freeing the slaves, but he's also looked at us as inferior. And one of the most popular quotes by Harriet Tubman, which said she freed 1,000 slaves, but she could have freed more, but they were enslaved psychologically. And then there was an underground railroad that was also in the South, because in Mexico, slavery was illegal. And there was a woman who, through the assistance of a couple of white males, was able to free or transport people to Mexico so that they didn't have to be enslaved. This guy was an advocate. He was also a spy for the government. Did a lot of great things for the United States government. All too often, Edwin Taylor is overlooked because they always say that Shirley Chisholm was the first black to run for president, but it was George Edwin Taylor who was the first black to run for president. And we never hear about the Black Holocaust, but Germans and people in Belgium as well were killing Africans and doing experiments on them. Queen Nzinga was a queen, and her story is loosely based on Woman King, the movie Woman King. Zerga, which is known for, he was a Moor. He taught the Europeans about hygiene. They did not know about hygiene. And I'm talking about washing up, washing under the arms. He was a master, he was an expert on hygiene. Hannibal, which a lot of people may hear the word Hannibal, think about some movie, but Hannibal Lecter, but Hannibal was an African who conquered the Iberian Peninsula, which is Spain and Portugal. This statue was in Spain. And these, unfortunately, this is one of the thousands and thousands of stories of young blacks being killed by whites. And these women made sure that the servicemen received their mail. This is a women of the 6,888 infantry. The gentleman, Julian Abel, designed the museum, the Philadelphia Art Museum, the one that is in the movie Iraqi, the where he ran up the steps. He designed that. He also designed part of West Campus at Duke University, but he wasn't allowed to attend it now. We talk about first women. Kamala Harris is the first minority woman to be vice president. Charles Stewart was the first Native American vice president. He's often overlooked because he was the vice president of Herbert Hoover, who at that time was considered the worst president of this country because he brought the United States into a depression. And then pillars of the flower moon. The United States government was forcing the indigenous people to Oklahoma, and they designated an area for them to live. As it turned out, the area they lived in had oil. They were sending their children to private school. They had limousines. They were living the life of Raleigh. And then when the whites found out all the money that they were making, they came up with a project to eliminate them. And of course, the worst riot in U.S. history has never been talked about is Black Wall Street. Black Wall Street was located in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the three main streets were Greenwood, Auburn, and Pine. The music group, the Gap Band, they honored them, and that's why the Gap Band is called GAP, honored after those three major streets. I know people are familiar with Charlie Wilson, but that music is part of the Gap Band. In the Syracuse State, they were being mistreated at the University of Syracuse, where they wanted the same resources, tutoring, that their white teammates were given. And as a result of their petition, they were blackballed. And then, of course, there were murders on three historically black colleges: Jackson State, South Carolina State, and Southern University, my alma mater. And I was a student at the time when Denver Smith and Leonard Brown were killed. I knew Leonard Brown. I had just met him 2 days before he was murdered. And I can tell you this, at Southern University, I was in that crowd. And I can tell you this, it was the darkest moment of my life. I have a lot to tell about that incident. So whenever I come into a situation, people say, oh, you're able to handle it. Well, my experience at Southern University on that day, November 16, 1917, was the darkest moment of my life. And then we have this lady, Annie Malone, who was a mentor to Madam C.J. Walker. She was selling hair products way before Madam C.J. Walker. And so it's important that we as people, young, old, research our history, because we know that the colonizers, the way the school system is now, is still exclusive instead of inclusive, because they only tell their story. And the Omnicat, there are about 15 of them in Mexico. The white settlers tried to destroy as many as they could. But there were still 15 of them that still remain. When Michelle Obama went to Mexico, she requested that she see the Omnicare. The Statue of Liberty was influenced by the statues in Egypt. And of course it was a gift from France, but it was influenced by France. And then this is a situation where the Supreme Court did not fail to protect the lives of blacks in this country. So I know there's a lot of wording on here, and that's why I made sure that you had the handouts for your personal copies. You can read this information. You can even go online and research even further about some of the information. And of course, this is the oldest image of Jesus Christ that's in Cairo, Egypt. And as you can see, he had the color burnt brass and hair like lamb's wool. And as I put this to a close, this is one of my favorite quotes. It's an African quote that says, until the lion tells his story, the hunter will always be the hero. Thank you.